All right. Thanks for everybody for showing up today. We're going to go ahead and get moving so we can respect everybody's time. I am your host, Don Baker, Director of Athletics for the Cobb County School District, about 25 miles northwest of Atlanta, Georgia. Huge thanks to the NIAAA for this platform, for taking the 80 Roundtable and really giving it a boost. And so we definitely appreciate that. Go Dogs! I saw that. I appreciate that as well. Um, we are excited that now the 80 Roundtable is presented by Daktronics, the experts in scoreboards, video displays, and audio systems trusted by high schools across the country. Whether you're upgrading your scoreboard or dreaming of a big time video board, which I'm sure everybody is, Daktronics has the tools to make it happen and even help you pay for it through sponsorship opportunities. They've been doing this since 1968, and they know how to make your game day unforgettable. So learn more at daktronics.com, and we appreciate them sponsoring the 80 Roundtable. Like we said last time, if you've got a topic that you'd like to discuss today, go ahead and put that in the chat. Also, as we talk to our special guest, if you have a question that you'd like to ask him as well, you can put that in there. And then when we get to that point today, Becky's going to help us facilitate those. So, want to go ahead and introduce our special guest today. We are joined by Pandit Dasa, a mindfulness expert, keynote speaker, and author whose journey is unlike almost any leadership voyage or voice that you're going to encounter. After immigrating from India to the United States as a child, Pandit spent his early years helping run his family's small business in Los Angeles before embarking on an unexpected path that would shape the rest of his life. Unsure of where he wanted to go or what he wanted to become, he traveled to India for what was meant to be 6 months of reflection. But that time of searching led him to a monastery in New York City, of all places, where he lived as a monk for 15 years. He is officially the first monk ever to be on the 80 Roundtable. I feel really safe in saying that. Today, he brings the lessons from that chapter, mindfulness, gratitude, self-awareness, and conscious leadership, into boardrooms, campuses, athletic departments, and organizations across the country, including major players like Google, JP Morgan, Chase, the NBA, and the U.S. Army, just to mention a few. With his signature blend of calm, clarity, thoughtful insight, and practical tools for reducing stress and increasing self-awareness, something I think we all can benefit from, Pandit challenges leaders to look inward long before they try to lead others, and that's something that we're going to talk about. His work inspires teams to communicate with emotional intelligence, lead with compassion, and create workplaces where people feel valued and supported. And I know that he's going to make us better today, just as he is going to at the NADC when he takes the stage to share his message on mindful and conscious leadership at the opening session. Pandit, thanks for saying yes, and welcome to the 80 Roundtable.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here, Don. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Now, you've challenged leaders to look inward long before they try to lead others, like I said just a second ago. And that mindset really stood out to me. When you say that leadership begins with self-leadership, I'm going to say that again. Leadership begins with self-leadership. What does that look like in practice, and how can leaders cultivate deeper self-awareness in their daily routines?
I'll start with a short story that just came to my mind on what it means to look within. So, a long time ago, one lady approached Gandhi saying that, could you please ask my son to stop eating sweets? He's eating way too many sweets. He said, come back in 2 weeks. Wasn't sure why he said that. She came back in 2 weeks. He told the kid to stop eating sweets. She said, why'd you make us wait 2 weeks? He's like, because I had to stop eating sweets first before I could ask your son to not do it, because I have to lead by example. So
Good.
I think if we don't look inward, there's going to be something genuine about us that's lost, right? We ourselves are going to forget that the people that are helping to grow our organization, that they're people, that they're human beings. And there's a risk of just seeing them as numbers and robots and people without feelings and lives and emotions and all kinds of things, right? So I think, how can we really lead others? It's just going to be so unhealthy if we haven't spent enough time introspecting about our own sort of shortcomings our own biases that we carry around, and we all have unconscious biases that we carry around. And our shortcomings as leaders, sometimes we get into this trap thinking, I don't have any shortcomings. I always have to be right. I always have to show strength, demonstrate strength for people to have faith in me. Otherwise, they'll lose trust in me as a leader. And when we do that, we suppress all of our emotions. If there's some mental health issues, we suppress them as well. And we keep pushing things down. So that's sort of like trying to suppress a volcano while it's erupting. Imagine if you could put a lid on it. Well, it's still boiling up. It's just looking for a little space and it's going to blow and explode and blow the top off. And so I think as leaders, we're not spending enough time with ourselves. We're so focused on sort of the bottom line, which is very important. I'm not saying we shouldn't focus on the bottom line, but there's different ways to get to the bottom line. It could be through a healthy path where you're healthy and you're making sure your organization's healthy, or it could be just destructive and toxic and an environment that's filled with fear and anxiety. So there's different ways to get there. If we get there in a way where it's reflective and with thought and care, where people are healthy and happier at the other end, then we know that we've created an environment where people actually want to be in that environment, where they're happy to show up to work, where they're not dreading Sunday night and they're cheering Friday afternoon, Like it would be nice to create an environment where people are happy to show up. So I think we're not spending enough time by ourselves, and unfortunately, now we have these things that are keeping us from ourselves even more because the moment we have a 5-minute break, we pull out a phone just to look at stuff. Whereas instead of spending time with myself, asking, what am I doing right today? What are my emotional triggers? What are my biases? I responded to this individual in a way that wasn't so positive and helpful. How can I change that? Should I go apologize? Like really spending more time introspecting. How is my mental health doing? How is my overall well-being? Because I like to think that as leaders, we have to lead by example, not just in terms of our work ethic, because we know you got to a leadership role because you have probably pretty amazing work ethic. No one's questioning that, your ability to work 12, 14, 16-hour days. We get it. That's probably what you're doing to get to that position. However, are you leading by example in how you're taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, and emotionally? And maybe even spiritually. Like, how are you taking time? Are you leading by example in all of those ways, or only by your work ethic? Because if it's only by work ethic, I think that sort is going to breed sort of a toxic workplace culture where people are going to think that I need to be on 24/7. And if I don't respond to this email that came across at 2 a.m., that I may be at risk of losing my job. So I think that's what it means to leading from within, spending time on self-reflection, understanding and having the humility to understand that I always have room for improvement. There's always room for improvement, and how to do that is something I think we need to continue to ask ourselves as leaders.
Hmm, that is so good. That idea of spending time with ourselves, I have found in the last couple of years, I walk in the morning, and it's just kind of my quiet time in the morning. I do not take my phone. That is intentional, so that I'm not distracted in any way, and it allows me to kind of start my day, reflecting right on the previous day or what I have to do that day, but it also allows me to kind of start from scratch. I'm not nervous about what's on my phone or what I'm missing out on. So I think that finding those times to do that is important. Now you mentioned the workplace, and you mentioned you've encouraged leaders to focus not only on what their teams do, but also on how their people feel in the process. I think this is a more common theme when you read books like Uncommon Hospitality, Will Goddard, and he talks about that, about how you feel in the workplace. You also talk a lot about leading with the heart as well as the mind, and that really resonates in today's workplace, I think. With that in mind, how can leaders promote empathy and compassion while still holding their teams accountable to high expectations? Because I think on the surface, you would look at those two things and say, they're not the same thing. You can't do one without the other. Maybe talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I think that without empathy, again, well, so if we see somebody as a leader, you see somebody maybe underperforming in some capacity, we could immediately go to the worst case scenario, assuming the worst case, like, oh, they're being lazy, maybe they're wasting their time, they're distracted. Instead, having the approach to finding, sitting with them as a person and saying, hey, I want to see if everything is okay on your end. Are there any challenges that you're going through that I should be aware of? Just approaching it from a human level as opposed to coming up with an assumption. Get to know the person, and that's something we should be doing on a regular basis, so we're aware. Maybe one of your colleagues, employees, is going through a crisis at home, health crisis, relationship crisis, a financial crisis. How can that not carry over into the workplace? That anxiety, that stress, how can that affect your productivity? And I think as leaders, we need to be aware that people have a life at home that's not always going well. There could be a disaster happening. Maybe somebody lost a loved one, and now they're at work just trying to get through the day, and they're just distracted and they're sad and all of these things, and they're not as productive in that moment. A human being can't be. Only a robot can be consistent level of productivity. Our productivity is going to be like this. It's just normal. We go through emotions, we go through different phases in life. So I think for a leader to immediately go to that space that, hey, let me take time out and see what's going on with this person, how they're feeling, is everything okay? And more than that, then have the sort of like the strength to say, like, what can I do to support you in this moment? Do you need a little extra assistance? Like creating that space of psychological safety where people know that their job isn't at risk if they sort of admit to going through some challenges, or maybe they're going through some mental health struggles, maybe they're going through some depression or anxiety because of whatever's happening at home. There should be an environment of psychological safety where they feel like they can openly talk about what they're going through and not be judged and not be at risk of losing their job. Right? So I think that's one big component of empathy. It actually, when somebody feels, when somebody is a recipient of empathy, their loyalty goes through the roof, and as a result, their productivity will also go beyond what we think it can be.
Yeah, I think you just I was just about to say that idea of kind of leaning into people as people, right? You started with that. You said loyalty, I would say trust, right? That builds trust. That I know Brene Brown calls them marble moments, where you have these moments where you're creating trust with the people that you work with, so that in the event that a crisis comes, leaders indefinitely, what do they say? Trust me. Like, we're going to get through this. Trust me. Well, that's kind of empty. If you've done nothing to build that trust, that you don't, if you're doing those little things along the way, you're asking them how their kid's soccer game went because you knew that they were going out of town that weekend. You're building trust along the way so that when it gets heavy and it gets tough, you don't have to say trust me. They do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it goes without saying. And again, just constantly being in touch with your people, I think it's the biggest investment we can make in our organization, because when people are happy, they are more productive. They buy into the culture more, they buy into the vision and mission much more than if they feel that they're on their own. And one way that trust is built is making sure there's a healthy level of appreciation on a consistent basis. And that appreciation has to come from leadership, and it just trickles all the way down. Then the managers are doing it, the VPs are doing it, and then ultimately people want to just do it for each other as colleagues. Even if you're not in a leadership role, you get into the habit of appreciating one another. It's sort of like, the late Dean Smith, who was a coach for Michael Jordan. He had a philosophy for his team, was that anytime somebody gives you an assist on the court, you point to them right there. Because you wouldn't have scored if that assist didn't come through. And so I think that's really important. It has to be timely in that moment, not like, hey, 3 weeks ago you did something and that was really helpful. I mean, hey, better late than never, I suppose. But the sooner, the better. And the more specific the appreciation is, that lets people know that you really were paying attention and that you really took notice of their specific contributions. Because as human beings, a paycheck is good, but it's not good enough. We value that human connection. And in an organization, one way that comes across is through appreciation. And when the leaders do it, it trickles down, and then gradually you want to get to a point where everyone's just sort of appreciating everyone else. So we're not just looking at all the great things we've done, we're also training ourselves to pay attention and see the great things others are doing as well. Oh, Don, you're on mute.
Sorry, that idea of consistency, I think, is huge because you've got to be able to read the room. You can't, because you know you're going in to ask them to do something difficult, compliment them, followed by that hard ask, right? It's got to be a consistent deal to build that trust so that there's not a feeling of the only reason he said that was because he needed X, you know?
Yeah, it's got to be like a 10 to 1, 5 to 1 ratio. Like we need to make 5 to 10 emotional deposits before we make a withdrawal,
Hmm.
right? I think even in your regular bank account, I think we would all agree that we would rather have more deposits than withdrawals. If it's the other way, then that bank account's going to close. And so, same thing when we're dealing with people, there's an emotional bank account we have with every single person that we're around, whether it's in our work or even at home. And so, the more deposits we make, the better it is. And the more genuine it is. Again, it's not like checking the box like I did it. We want to transform ourselves, our mindset. We want to train our mind to see the good contributions others are doing. And this should be for everyone. The more we train ourselves, because I think we've all, as a society, we've trained ourselves to see others' faults so that we can one up them. Like, oh, my car is better. Or I did more. They did less. Yeah, right. I'm going to win this. Why don't we train ourselves to think differently about others, right? To give others the benefit of the doubt, sort of. That's such a much healthier mindset. It doesn't mean we're going to be less productive. I think we'll be more because we'll have more team members willing to support and encourage and inspire us. And then if everyone's inspiring one another, appreciating one another, you can see everyone's just growing. The whole team is growing, it's thriving. And plus, it's an environment that you really want to spend time in. If we're spending 8 to 10 hours of our waking time, sorry, of our waking time at work, I think we can all agree we'd want to spend those 8 to 10 valuable hours of our waking time in a positive, healthy, encouraging, supportive environment, as opposed to an environment where I'm constantly having to look over my shoulder to see if I'm going to get backstabbed or pushed over.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think I'm not trying to say it's got to be a kumbaya kind of thing all the time, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be difficult conversations, but to your point, it's a conscious choice. I've got to be here for 8 hours today. Like, how am I going to approach it and how am I going to tackle it? And I think if you're looking at it a little more full than empty, you're going to be more productive in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And difficult conversations are healthy. And when the team is in a healthy place, those difficult conversations, trust isn't lost at the end of them.
Right.
Because we've already spent so much time building that trust that a couple of bad conversations or difficult ones isn't going to make it's not going to make that tree crumble.
Hmm.
It'll remain standing because you know that these are good, thoughtful people. Yeah, we disagreed strongly today, but I know at the core that these are amazing people and I like working with them. So maybe I need to reach out to them individually and say, hey, I think I might not have understood what you're saying. Can you please enlighten me? Can you please elaborate? I really want to understand your point of view, right? So when there's trust, that's much easier to do. Where if you're just already at loggerheads, you're never going to make that kind of a call.
Yeah. Well, and here's the deal too. If they're animated in that conversation, it means they care, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the other part of understanding people is not everyone expresses their opinions in exactly the same manner.
Right.
And that's also personality types. There's different people. Some are quieter, more introverted. They may not express as much, even though there's a lot going on inside. Some are more extroverted, more vocal, more passionate. They'll express it differently. Doesn't mean the one who's not talking isn't passionate. There's also cultural differences. There's certain cultures in which you don't voice your opinion in a really bold way. So we can't mistake that as a sign of weakness. It's just culturally, that's not how it's done. So when we're working in a diverse environment, people of different cultures and backgrounds and different personality types, we have to take that into consideration as well. That, there are different people around the table from different cultures, different upbringing, different backgrounds. And just because someone doesn't speak up or doesn't express their thoughts in a certain way doesn't mean they don't care. They just care in a different way, and they're going to communicate that in a different way.
So good. Now let's kind of shift gears just a little bit. We give a book recommendation every time that the AD Roundtable meets, and your book, "Mindfulness for the Wandering Mind," that is our book recommendation for this month. And you've got a great analogy in your book where you compare all the things that we have our minds preoccupied with, like unused apps on our phone, right?
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that for a minute. I thought it was a home run of an analogy. It's something we all can relate to. Maybe talk about that for a minute and how, if we can close those apps that we aren't using, how it can help ease our minds and help us focus.
Well, I think we all know how to close the apps on one of these, right? Even a 2-year-old can do it. My 2-year-old's getting pretty good at it already, locking me out of my phone. So we all know how to do that. But I think we don't know, we've never learned how to close the apps in our mind. According to Psychology Today, an average person has between 25,000 and 50,000 thoughts per day. That's about 1 to 2,000 thoughts an hour. So imagine that many apps in your mind. And what happens to your device, your smart device, when you don't close out the apps? It slows down and it drains the battery. Well, now translate that into our mind. Well, if we don't close out apps from a week ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, do we have apps running from 10 years ago? Are we still remembering and ruminating on the difficult thing we went through 10 years ago? Or how maybe somebody said or did something that we didn't deserve? Are we still ruminating on that and still letting that drain our emotional battery? So we have a ton of apps, tons of things we're thinking about, and a lot of them, sometimes it's just meditating on the past, which really doesn't do us much good anymore because it's already done. You can't go back in history and change it. Or we're coming up with worst case scenarios about the future. And we're spending a lot of time on these negative things, which is where the mind spends a lot of time, is in a negative thought process, ruminating and worrying. It spends too much time there as opposed to being in the present moment and trying to figure out what it can do right now. And so if we can close out and clear out some of those apps, just like a device, your mind would function with more clarity, more focus, and you would actually get more done because you're only focusing on the apps you need in the moment. And one way to do that is when you do catch yourself in a negative thought, and that's the hardest part, is to catch yourself. Because sometimes you could just be in that thought for 10 minutes, just ruminating, getting angry all over again from something that happened 5 years ago, and you all worked up now for no reason. It's meaningless at that moment because you're not using a productive technique to learn something and grow from it. You're just ruminating and boiling up all over again. So once you catch yourself, you can really ask yourself, is this serving me in any capacity? And the answer is almost always going to be no. In that moment, you take a deep breath in and you breathe out that thought and those emotions associated with that thought. And then you almost find like, whoa, what just took over me? Like, how did I let that take over my mind for no reason? And you feel better in that moment. Not that that thought won't re-enter, but in that moment you got rid of it. It's sort of like getting rid of the traffic jam on a highway. Driving is much better, and you make more progress.
Hmm, that's really good. I had we were in a district AD cohort earlier today, and there was something that was said in there about the things in life that essentially they take our time away from us, right? And in some ways take our mental capacity away. We only have so much capacity. And it kind of speaks to what you're talking about there. That idea of you're hanging on to things and you're still having things that maybe even not even consciously you're thinking about, but you know that it's living rent free in your head, that it's eating into that capacity, which then makes you less productive, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a friend of mine who is still a monk, he said it, I think others have said it too, that if you can control something, if you have control over something, then there's no need to worry about it. And if you can't control something, then what's the point of worrying about it? And most things in life
Fair.
fall into those two categories.
That's
Either you
fair.
can control it or you can't. Well, if you can't, then why worry? Because it's going to happen the way it's going to happen anyways. And if you can, then what are you worried about if you have full control over something? So it's interesting. The more I think about it, the more I meditate on my own mind and thoughts and emotion. I'm like, I spend way too much time worrying about stuff that actually does not deserve a second of time in my mind. But that's, I think, the game of life is being able to manage our mind. If we can manage our mind, we manage our emotions, we manage our behavior, we manage our speech, and life can change in dramatic ways, actually. And our leadership capacity can change in dramatic ways.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it said before that if you wouldn't ask them for their opinion on anything, why do you care what they have to say, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people on this call, that's who we're dealing with. A lot of people that they don't call to ask us how our day is, right? They're usually upset about something or someone. But at the end of the day, after you hear them out, I mean, if you wouldn't ask them for advice anyway, why are you concerned about their 2 cents? Now, listen for truth. I think that's important, but at the same time, kind of take it with a grain of salt. Becky, I don't know if we've got anybody that has a question for Pandit. If you do, we can knock some of those out. If not, we can keep chatting for just a few more minutes.
Right now, there is nothing in the chat, but now that you've kind of opened that up, we may see a couple. But if you've got something you want to keep chatting on while they start typing, we'll get going.
All right. So obviously, if you've got a question or if you've got something that you'd like to pick Pandit's brain on, by all means, do that. I mentioned it in the intro. Never. I'll be very safe in saying this. As a young man from South Georgia, I have never had an interaction with a monk. So maybe kind of talk to us just briefly about that experience. That's a fascinating story, how you ended up doing that. Maybe kind of touch on that just a little bit.
So obviously it's a pretty long story, but I'll try to summarize it. I mean, like, so basically when after my parents experienced several ups and downs, like they built this multi-million-dollar jewelry business and they lost it all. That's when I really began to question life. Like, hey, what does all this mean? You could work so hard and the random things can take everything away. So what's the purpose of life? And what should I be dedicating my energy to? And that's when I landed in the monastery, mainly in New York for 15 years. Just really, I went there to reflect on life and what's the purpose and how I wanted to live the rest of my life because I'm like, something doesn't make sense about life. Something I was questioning life in a very deep way. And I'm like, that was the best place to do it. And, while I was there, I ended up, this is not what I was expecting. I ended up speaking to lots of students on college campuses like Columbia University, New York University on mindfulness and work-life balance and managing your emotions. And I noticed that as I was helping them, I was also helping myself. As the saying goes, that you learn the most by teaching. And I did not realize that's what was going to happen because I went to India for like 1 to 6 months, and 15 years of my life passed by since at that time. I left the monastery about 11 years ago. But it was an incredible experience where I learned that the more I teach, the more I learn. And no matter how deep I go within myself, there's unlimited more depths to explore. And that's part of the exciting adventures of life is to continue to learn about ourselves. Because the moment you think you've understood yourself, there's many more levels that can be excavated.
Good deal. I don't have a first name. So Kay Burke, you want to ask your question?
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for this. It's really timely. We just came out of a very difficult conversation with one of our coaches. And my question is, um, one is like the ways in which we might build this into our recruitment and assessment process for candidates. We're finding increasingly like obviously knowledge is not enough, right? They have to bring emotional intelligence with them in order to be successful.
So your question is how to build it into your recruitment process?
Recruitment and screening, yep.
Okay. Huh. I'd have to learn a little bit about about your recruitment process as it currently stands. But I think really just giving out scenarios to them on how they would handle certain situations. All right. I think we can find certain questions to ask the candidates, how they would handle a certain situation. and I'm sure we already have those situations that, for examples from the past, students are going through this, students are going through that. Well, how would you handle that? What would you do if a student was in this situation? What would you do if this happened? What would you do if this happened? And I think the purpose and the intention behind the question is to see if they're able to connect emotionally, and not they're not just giving the right answer, but where are they coming from? Do they have experience dealing with that kind of thing before? And to be able to test their emotional intelligence by certain answers, are they answering? Have they dealt with that kind of situation from the heart, from the mind? I think finding the right questions through which we can understand emotionally where that individual is at, where they're coming from, what their experiences are, and how they've handled those situations before. So I
Good
hope that was somewhat helpful.
stuff. Good stuff. Jake?
Hey, Bandit, thanks for sharing. Really great stuff. I was just curious, have you ever heard of the, I guess, semi-humorous story, The Complaining Monk? And did your experience mirror that, The Complaining Monk?
So I have not heard of the complaining monk, but I definitely know quite a few complaining monks, and I think I was one of them at times.
That's good.
Who doesn't complain once in a while? But that definitely sounds hilarious, and I think I'll probably
Well,
look into it.
well, it's very, very short. Basically, a monastery, the novices were only allowed to speak 2 words every year to the abbot. At the end of the first year, the novice goes, "Food bad." At the end of the second year, he says, "Bed hard." And at the end of the third year, the novice says, "I quit." And the abbot goes, "Well, I'm not surprised. All you do is complain ever since you got here." So it's
Yeah,
just
that is funny.
so. I mean, looking back, I mean that had to be a severe change in lifestyle. What are some of your memories of that first year?
Well, the one thing that was hard was having to wake up at 4 in the morning every single day, because our meditation started at around 4:30 or 5. So that wasn't an easy thing because, I was used to sleeping around that time before that. So now you have to wake up at that time. So you have to adjust your whole schedule. And then, of course, in a monastery, which is interesting, is that you're living with 10 to 15 people, 30 people sometimes. In New York, it was only about 7, 8 people. And when you're living that closely, in communal spaces, that means even the sleeping spaces are in a communal room. It's not like anybody has their own room. Maybe one or two did. And you're sharing bathrooms. You definitely can get on each other's nerves, even as monks, right? And so learning to get along and not just tolerate, but appreciate the differences of each individual, because they're all coming from different cultures. Some of them are coming from different religious backgrounds, spiritual cultures, and now you've got a bunch of people from different cultures in one space who are meditating together, who are serving together. And if you don't learn to get, it's kind of like a team in a corporation. You have to learn cooperation. You can't just think that, oh, this person's not good enough. Because they don't do things the way I do, they're not good enough. So that's where we had to change our thinking. Like, because they do things different than me, that means they have different strengths than I do. So that's one of the most powerful things, was that really learning to appreciate and accept the differences in natures, in backgrounds, and work ethic that everyone had. And just because someone's not doing things the way I am doesn't mean that they are in any way lesser than me. It just means they have strengths that I don't have probably, and I have strengths that they don't have. And now let's bring them together and really create a wonderful environment. So that was a powerful lesson for me to learn.
Thanks.
All right, good deal. Anybody else have anything for Pennant before we let him go? All right, Pennant, do me a favor. How can people connect with you if they, obviously enjoyed what they heard today? Looking forward to hearing you down in Tampa. What's the best way to connect with you?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just drop a link to my LinkedIn profile here.
Sure.
That may be the easiest way to connect with me. And if anybody does come up with a question that they didn't have a chance to ask right now or didn't want to ask. Now, I'm very active on LinkedIn, check it regularly, post on and off. So feel free to connect with me there and ask me. We can communicate through there as well. And if you want to check out my website, just panditdasa.com, check out what I do and what other things I speak on. Want to reach out to me, you're welcome to. So yeah, I think LinkedIn for now is probably the easiest and simplest way.
All right. We thank you so much for your time. You're more than welcome to hang out with us for a little bit if you want to, or we will see you in Tampa. Appreciate it.
Yeah, see you in Tampa. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Again, the book "Mindfulness for the Wandering Mind" is the name of our book recommendation for this month. And again, it's an easy read and is full of very practical information, very similar to what he shared today. That it's one of those kind of things where when he says it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I would highly recommend it. Especially with all of the things that we have to deal with in a normal 24-hour period. It helps you to kind of calm the seas a little bit. Our podcast recommendation is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. If you don't know who she is, you definitely need to know. But she has conversations with culture shifters, what she calls change catalysts, and people that are innovating, creating, and really daring to lead, as the title says. So I would strongly suggest that you add that to your podcast list. Was listening to one of hers just recently, and that idea of when placing effort and attention on certain things, and the idea that if that effort doesn't move you forward, if it doesn't move you forward, it might not be the right effort. If you just feel like you've made it to the 50-yard line and you can't get past the 50-yard line, whatever you're doing, probably you need to modify it. Maybe you need to ask more questions. Maybe you need to pull in another resource. So that was one little tidbit that I got from her from one of her podcasts that I listened to just recently. And kind of getting back to, I know we talked a little bit about hiring there. I'll kind of just share something, and I want to thank. I got to go back and look because I'm not sure who it was or if they are even here today. But there was a suggestion regarding hiring the last month on the roundtable. The idea of putting people on a 2-minute clock, essentially, to teach them something. We're hiring educators, not just coaches. And the idea of putting someone on a clock, get up on the whiteboard, you got 2 minutes, teach us something. Dealer's choice. I don't care what it is, but you teach us something. I took that. I'm in the process of hiring a new assistant in my office. My assistant is retiring and was operating at a very high level and wanted to find someone that I felt like could handle the job effectively. So there was a couple things that we did in the interview, that being one of them. But about 10 minutes into the interview, I had a number of another one of the clerks in the office on my cell phone, and I pulled my cell phone out and I told the candidate, I said, and we're about 10 minutes into the interview, they have no idea this is coming. I said, okay, I'm going to dial a number on my phone and I'm going to put it on speaker. And on the other end of this line is an irate parent. Okay. One of the things that my assistant does is she is the biggest gatekeeper that I've ever seen. You've got to get past her to get to me. And so I need to see if you can do that like she can. So there's an irate parent on the other side of this line, and you've got 5 minutes to talk her down. And I hit send immediately. And it was a separator almost from the jump as to the candidates that could handle that and the ones that couldn't. And I will tell you, the clerk who she did a home run job. She was the most difficult parent that I've ever heard on the other side of a phone. And it turned into an immediate separator. The ones that couldn't talk her down are the ones that immediately were like, well, he's busy right now. That really set her off. Like things that she would say, or the candidates would say, that would either elevate her tone or it would calm her down. And so we did that. And then about 30 minutes in, I had a piece of paper in the room, a big, large piece of paper and a Sharpie that had been in there the whole time. I never acknowledged it. It was just kind of in the corner of the room. And I said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to stop for just a second. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about this, and then you're going to have 2 minutes to teach us something. And naturally, the first question is, what? What do you mean to teach you? The response, dealer's choice, whatever you want. Okay. You've got 30 seconds. At the end of that 30 seconds, I'll stop you. You have 2 minutes to teach us something. Go. Again, huge separator. Okay. Probably caused a little bit of emotional damage to one candidate, about had a panic attack, but it showed me that that candidate would probably not be best for this position. You've got to think on your feet. You've got to be able to explain things to parents. And what we do is, as well as coaches and other athletic directors, being at the district level like I am. And so, can you do that in a very short period of time? And the candidate that we ended up selecting did a fantastic job in doing that. And then I know that we've already given one book recommendation, but we ended the interview by asking a question out of Brett Ledbetter's 365 questions. There's not an easy question in this book, and they are they can be kind of personal. They can be they can really let you kind of lift the hood on someone and understand what makes them tick. And they picked a number between 1 and 365. Blind question. They have no idea what it is. I flipped to it, asked it, and got a unbelievable answers from that question. And then you ask them, why did you pick that number? And a lot of the times it's, that's my son's number. He plays baseball and that's his number. That's my kid's birthday. That was our wedding anniversary. It allows you to kind of tap into that human element of that person that it's hard to do sometimes in an interview. And so that's three things that I did in that interview to break up the interview, the monotony of it. And I feel like it made for a better interview. And I'm hoping, right? Verdict is still out. She starts tomorrow, but I hope that it will translate into a better hire. And as we are all struggling to find better ways to hire people, I felt like that was a huge asset to us on that day. So that was just my little tidbit of advice today, just something that has happened in the last month that I wanted to share. If anybody else has anything that you would like to discuss, I know down here in the South, we are in the process of making transitions from more outdoor events to indoor. And I think we all know from an event management standpoint that presents a different set of problems from time to time. And so if you've got any advice from moving from outdoor events to indoor events, by all means unmute yourself and let's talk about it. Or if you got another question that you'd like to throw out to the group, feel free to do that. Everybody has it all figured out.
It looks like today. Or there's just too much and they don't know where to start.
Marty said, absolutely not.
I don't know if we have enough time to go into
Absolutely. Anybody else? Dustin Smith must not be with us today.
Zach, go ahead and unmute yourself. Zach had his hand up.
Sure.
I'll share one since we're quiet today. We have a monthly ADs meeting, and one of the topics that came up, one of our ADs asked the question, what we're doing with paying game workers. And what we discovered is that we've got some work to do in our areas in terms of meeting some of the legal obligations and fair labor standards and such. So we had a little 20-minute or so 508 workshop on fair labor standards. So it was a great discussion amongst our group. And so if that's something that's happening in your area, there's a plug for one of our LTCs. There's some good content in 508 that helps you with that if you're dealing with that at all.
Good deal. Dawn, I would love to know how that turns out. about to ask one of her colleagues to teach him something in 2 minutes. See what she says. I will tell you, my outgoing assistant said you would never hire me if I had to go through that interview. So uh,
Don, inquiring minds want to know, and that means me. What did she teach you? The
So
one you hired.
she is a cheer mom, which, not gonna lie, played a big role in her getting a bump and getting hired. Um, she is a cheer mom, and she said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how to navigate a cheer competition as a parent." And she went through the whole thing like this. We're going to get here at this time. We're going to go to this line. We're going to do this. You are not to take pictures and video. You are to act silly and wait. I mean, she did the whole thing. This is how you're supposed to cheer and all. And she finished it literally, and she doesn't see the clock. When she stopped, I hit stop, and it was 2 minutes on the dot. And so that was kind of what put her over the top.
Do you feel better prepared to go to cheer competitions at this point?
I could crush a cheer competition
Love it.
now if I had to. Yes.
Love it.
I'm betting against him going to a cheer competition,
Okay, well, you never know.
no matter how comfortable he feels.
As am I.
I'm usually at soccer fields or swimming pools. That's my two. Of course I can judge stunt, Jake. I know when they hit and when they don't. Anybody else? All right, everybody. Want to kind of wrap up here before we get out. Want to let you know that we obviously will not meet in December due to the NADC. Our next meeting is January 28th. We will have Randy Gravitt with us. He is the founder of Lead Every Day. He's also a keynote speaker and an author. Really, really excited to have him on. And for him, leadership is not just a career for him, it's a calling, and you're going to be able to tell that. And just has a real unwavering commitment to leadership development. And I think it's going to be great for everybody. So thanks again for taking the time today. I hope that you found value in the AD Roundtable. If so, please tell somebody, tell a friend, and get them in here. And lastly, just kind of want to thank our sponsor again to the AD Roundtable, Daktronics, for bringing big league scoreboards and video displays to high school athletics. You can learn more at daktronics.com. Wishing everybody a very happy Thanksgiving, and a Merry Christmas and all that good stuff. And can't wait to see as many of you as possible down in Tampa. So take care of yourself, and we will talk soon.